She is a girl who has remained untouched for 300 years, never married, forever innocent. When the wig comes off, he transforms into the beloved favorite of a powerful queen. Next to the aging and weary monarch, he is like a flower in full bloom, vibrant, fresh, and breathtakingly beautiful. The queen can never regain her lost youth, but she wields absolute power to declare the young man her prize, her conquest. As a token of her favor, the queen gifts him a lavish reward, an estate of vast lands, a grand manor built upon it, and piles of glittering gold. She even bestows upon him the highest honor of knighthood. This young man and his heirs will enjoy these privileges for eternity, but the queen adds one condition: eternal youth. Her words become a curse, one that clings to Orlando for the next 400 years. This film, released in 1992, still feels shockingly ahead of its time even now. 23 years later, it's hard to believe it was based on a novel written in 1928, a story once described as the longest and most beautiful love letter in the world. 2 years before the story truly begins, the stunning Orlando is just 16. He's born into an ancient noble family, sharing the same noble blood as the queen herself. He spends his days beneath an oak tree, pen in hand, lost in his thoughts. Orlando is highly educated, sensitive, and tinged with melancholy. He's a lover of poetry and nature, with a deep yearning for beauty and truth. One day, the queen visits his family's estate. Orlando dons his finest court attire, preparing to meet the legendary monarch. He races into her presence, kneels on one knee, and humbly offers her a bowl of rose petal-scented water to wash her hands. He dares not lift his gaze, catching only the sight of her aged, wrinkled hands, but the queen doesn't scold him. Instead, she looks at him with a kind of tender affection. At the banquet that evening, Orlando recites a poem he wrote himself, one that celebrates the beauty of youth. The queen's face darkens. To ease the tension, his father quickly explains his son's poem is, of course, praising the queen's own beauty. Their eyes meet, and in that moment, the fiery-tempered queen falls in love with the innocent Orlando. She adores his slender legs and handsome face. Orlando becomes the queen's favorite, yet he feels utterly alone. Not long after, the queen dies. Orlando's father soon passes away as well. Lost and adrift, Orlando is haunted by the realization that he will outlive everyone he loves. This fear, this helplessness, clings to him like a shadow. Though he gets engaged to a noblewoman, it's nothing more than a social formality. He doesn't love her. In 1610, during the Grand Frost Fair held on the frozen Thames, the English aristocracy celebrates in opulence. They mock the laborers trapped in the ice, showing not an ounce of pity. There, Orlando meets Sasha, the daughter of a Russian diplomat. She's petite, graceful, and effortlessly elegant as she glides across the ice. With just one glance, something stirs deep inside Orlando, a feeling he thought long gone. He forgets about his fiancée entirely. At dinner, several noblemen fawn over Sasha, but she ignores them. Instead, she chats playfully in French with Orlando, who's seated across the table. Their chemistry is undeniable, every smile and glance full of hidden messages. Everyone at court notices the sparks. His fiancée burns with jealousy. Friends warn Orlando that he's throwing away his future, but he doesn't care. He only wants to follow his heart. He falls for Sasha, completely and hopelessly. For her, he says, he'd rather hunt a wild wolf than a tame little rabbit. He'll drink strong Russian vodka, not some watered-down whiskey. His fiancée confronts him, demanding to know if he's forgotten their engagement. Orlando calmly replies, "No, I haven't forgotten." Furious, she hurls the ring and storms out. Orlando and Sasha fall madly in love, but he is a deeply emotional soul, always fearing that she will leave him. His love is so intense that it borders on obsession. One day, he imagines Sasha kissing a sailor. In a fit of rage, he storms the ship and attacks the man, only to be thrown back. Sasha, disgusted, tells him that sailor was only helping her board the ship. But Orlando's vision is clouded by jealousy and despair. Orlando and Sasha made a secret vow to run away together, but on the day of their planned escape, Sasha never showed up. Winter passed, spring returned, a sudden downpour cracked the ice open, and then Orlando remembered Sasha once said the day the ice breaks would be the day she leaves. His dreams were shattered. The betrayal burned deep, filling him with rage and humiliation. Orlando didn't just love Sasha, he also loved who he was when he was with her. But Sasha, who longed for freedom, couldn't survive in a narrow world built on expectations. That kind of world would only suffocate her. Though they were close, Orlando never truly entered Sasha's heart. Her indifference foreshadowed the inevitable end of their love. Devastated, Orlando fell into a deep sleep that lasted 7 full days. Doctors came daily, but none could explain his condition. Then one morning, he finally woke up. With that, he said farewell to his first love and to the reckless passion of youth. Only in poetry could Orlando find brief relief from his heartbreak. From 1650 onward, Orlando shut himself away on his estate. He immersed himself in writing, and it brought him comfort. This life of solitude lasted for 40 years, yet Orlando remained young and beautiful, untouched by time. He wrote a collection of poems titled The Oak Tree, hoping for feedback. He invited the famous writer Nick Green to visit. Green claimed that true genius comes from poverty and despair. Only through struggle can an artist access the rawness of emotion. He mocked Shakespeare, saying his work was never born of love for the craft, but of a need to survive. According to Green, English poetry was already dead, and then came the real blow. Green said Orlando's wealthy lifestyle made it impossible for him to feel anything authentic. Therefore, his work could never be considered great. Green, whose writing was adored by the youth, called his own work trash, something he had to produce to pay his yearly rent of £300. Orlando, deeply admiring him, offered to cover the rent, but behind his back, Green dismissed Orlando as a shallow noble playing at art, and called his poetry worthless. Crushed by such cruel words from someone he idolized, Orlando angrily tossed Green's letter into the fire, yet he still valued their friendship and honored his promise to pay the rent. By the year 1700, after suffering in both love and art, Orlando set his sights on a new path, politics. He requested a diplomatic post in Constantinople, and the king agreed. Orlando served with great diligence. At first, the local ruler was unimpressed by Orlando's presence. He remarked that the British seemed to enjoy collecting other nations, but Orlando assured him that England had no interest in challenging the king's sovereignty. As they grew familiar with each other, the king came to understand Orlando had journeyed all this way not for conquest, but to mend a broken heart. The two became friends. They shared bread, shared wine, and shared their views of the world. Orlando remained in Constantinople for 10 years. Eventually, the Duke of Harry arrived to award him a medal. Queen and herself had promoted Orlando. At the victory banquet, their celebration was suddenly interrupted by a surprise attack from enemy forces. The king warned Orlando that the enemy was right at their gates and begged for his help. Moved by their friendship, Orlando took up arms, but on the battlefield, he witnessed horror and death. He tried to revive an injured enemy soldier. The Duke reminded him that this man was the enemy. Orlando fell into deep thought. He was disgusted by the violence and the suffering that power inflicted on ordinary people. Over the centuries, Orlando had begun to absorb the qualities of compassion and empathy, traits often associated with the feminine. Overwhelmed by pain, he collapsed once again into unconsciousness. 7 days later, in a divine glow, he awoke, now with a cascade of beautiful curls. The moment the wig was removed, he said goodbye to the gender he once knew. Orlando had shed the garments of manhood. He had become a woman, with the dust of the moon in her soul. She stepped forward as someone new. This transformation brought not just a change in form, but in spirit. The woman Orlando had no need to cling to the identity of the handsome youth she once was. She crossed the desert, returning to her homeland. No longer just Orlando now, she was Lady Orlando. She began to understand the true weight of punishment and privilege. With 30 years of experience as a man, Orlando once believed that women should be obedient, chaste, refined, and perfectly groomed. Now, as a woman herself, Orlando spent hours every day struggling into corsets, petticoats, and enormous skirts. Just preparing to be presentable gave her a newfound respect for the lives of women. Those grand, sweeping gowns might be beautiful, but every step in them was a burden. By 1750, during Britain's classical era, literary salons flourished. Orlando dove into London's vibrant social scene. Despite her servants' warnings not to go alone, her love for poetry could not be denied. Dressed in silk adorned with ribbons and a towering wig, she glowed with beauty, her smile as fresh as the rouge on her cheeks. The Duke of Harry recognized her immediately. To him, she was still a possession to be claimed. Meanwhile, arrogant writers filled the room, debating how women were meant to be submissive. In that moment, Orlando saw her former self, how blind and foolish she'd once been. She finally understood why Sasha had left her. She challenged the aristocrats' empty speeches, but after the debate, she fell silent. Back then, women had no rights to inheritance, no property, and rarely even jobs. Marriage was often the only way to survive. From her former life as a man, Orlando began to see how deeply unfair society had been toward women, and now, as a woman, she felt the full weight of that pain. Disaster soon followed. Upon returning home, Orlando was served with multiple lawsuits. The aristocracy claimed Orlando had always been a woman, and had deceived the queen by posing as a man. Therefore, they said, she had no right to the land or royal gifts. They demanded she return everything. The Duke of Harry proposed marriage to restore her dignity. Orlando declined. He mocked her, saying she'd die alone. Lifting her heavy skirts, she fled into the maze-like garden walls. In truth, Orlando no longer knew whether she was man or woman. She felt like a feather in the wind. In a patriarchal world, all power belonged to men. She wanted to scream but felt helpless. Now, this expensive silk dress couldn't contain the heart that longed for equality and freedom. Tense strings built in the background as Orlando wandered deeper into the labyrinth. When she emerged from the fog, 100 years had passed. It was now the Victorian era. Her romantic, elaborate dress had become a sleek and somber robe. Breathing heavily, she collapsed on the green grass. The year was 1850. Lying there, she met a man who had fallen from his horse. He asked if she was hurt. She replied, "I'm already dead." Orlando fell in love again, this time with the American adventurer Shelmardine. It was the age of the Industrial Revolution. Shelmardine's ideas of liberty, equality, and openness awakened something in Orlando. He looked just like Sasha. After centuries, their roles had reversed. Orlando was now the woman, and Shelmardine, unlike other British men, spoke words that moved her deeply. He said, "Freedom must be fought for. If I were a woman, I wouldn't choose to sacrifice myself just to raise children. I wouldn't drown in gentleness." The boy who once recited poetry under an oak tree had now become a mature woman. It wasn't just a change of gender but a true evolution of self. Orlando realized regardless of being male or female, everyone deserves to live with purpose, and to do what they love. For the first time, Orlando experienced a love that was truly free and beautiful. Then came the court's final decision. As a woman, Orlando could not inherit her estate. Before the judge could finish reading, she signed the ruling. She had traded property for something greater: equality and freedom. But their love couldn't hold Shelmardine. Orlando said she wanted to have a child for love. Shelmardine replied, "My love belongs to the world." He had a new adventure to pursue. This time, Orlando didn't ask him to stay. Perhaps true love is not about possession, but about drawing warmth and strength from each other's light. No amount of physical distance could compare to the deep connection they shared in spirit. That day, in the pouring rain, they said their final goodbye. Orlando stood beneath the storm, baptized by the rain. Each drop carried with it the power of life and transformation. She let go of exhaustion and doubt, surrendering herself fully to the purity of this moment, one where she felt deeply connected to nature itself. Then, the scene shifts. The thunder of war breaks through. It's World War II. Orlando is pregnant. She shields her unborn child from flying bullets and falling bombs. In the chaos of destruction, she is reborn. We move forward into the present day. Orlando has built a successful career. She's now a celebrated writer. Her poetry collection, The Oak Tree, stitched together over 400 years, has finally been published and has won a prestigious literary award. She no longer bows or flatters people the way she once did with Nick Green. At the award ceremony, the publisher curiously asks, "How long did it take to write this book?" Orlando doesn't answer directly. Instead, she looks beyond the question toward us. The publisher has no idea that this book has taken her nearly 4 centuries to finish. Later, Orlando rides a motorcycle with her daughter on the back. They return to the estate that once belonged to her. Her daughter, tall and beautiful, has inherited Orlando's long legs and striking looks. The manor is now a museum. Orlando quietly observes the passing of time. And yet, she hasn't aged a day. On the museum wall hangs a portrait Orlando, painted centuries ago. Tourists snap photos, intrigued by the mysterious noble whose image has endured through time. None of them realize the woman standing beside them is that very same Orlando. As the film nears its end, Orlando reflects on the 4 centuries she has lived. She sees flashes of herself as a boy, a duke, a woman, a noble lady, all laid out before her. Countless versions of Orlando. And yet, the present-day self feels strangely absent, hovering, detached. Behind her stands the ancient oak tree. Its trunk has grown so wide it now takes several people to wrap their arms around it. Though her appearance has barely changed over 400 years, Orlando's mind has. She no longer questions fate. She has left the past behind and found a new beginning. From the reign of Queen Elizabeth I to the modern world, she has woven together the essence of both masculine and feminine, finding balance between her inner world and the one outside. Her daughter notices tears on her mother's cheek and asks, "Why are you crying?" Orlando smiles and replies, "I'm not crying, I'm happy." Then, She looks up toward the angel singing above her. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.